Thanks, Carol. Before I get started today on the talk, I want to welcome Jesus in the AV booth. Give him a hand, would you? He comes to us with some great experience, and he and Wendy are going to make an awesome pair up there working out some of our stuff that we're going through. So we so appreciate you being here, Jesus. All right, number 6. Through this journey that we're on, and this week is probably, at least for me, is teachings that run up against all my domestication and all my training in my life. And I don't know about you, and you'll see, but we're talking about detachment and surrender. These are two subjects that the ego doesn't like a whole lot. And as we go through it, we're going to see it and how it shows up as a universal law, but also a principle, and as we begin to apply it in our lives, we'll see some things change. And don't forget this Tuesday night here in the sanctuary at 7 to 8:30. We've been having great classes. The energy has been awesome. I have a hard time getting to sleep Tuesday nights because of all the energy, and but it's all good. It's all good energy. So be there if you can. So we've talked about this every week. I think it's important just to understand that spirituality, religion, science is all coming together. It's really been part of the whole quantum theory. Has been bringing the new notion, and this whole idea that until we vibrate, until we're at the frequency of what we want, it's not going to show up. And we've done all this for decades. We've done all this work, the mind work, thought work. It's important, but it's only a piece of it. And what we're looking at through all of this is getting ourselves in alignment. As Einstein said, this is not philosophy, this is not religion, it's science, it's physics. Well, as we get in line, and what I call the law of attraction, which is what we're working with here, is basically the same thing as we see in the physical with the law of gravity. It always works, whether you believe in it or not, right? In the physical. Well, the same thing happens in the spiritual and happens in the mental and the emotional and the vibrational. The law of attraction always works. Whether you believe in it or not, it doesn't matter. It keeps doing its thing. Because we've talked about this now, I think, for 6 weeks. The law of attraction, the universe has only one answer, right? Yes. Yes to whatever you want to vibrate to. And so as we look at that, and this whole notion now of detachment and surrender, we'll put this in a different perspective than we have in the other 5 weeks that we've worked it. Our thoughts are important. They create our feelings. We know that. Every feeling had a thought that started it. And we can work backwards. Why do I feel like this? Go back to the thought you just had. And that thought creates the feelings create the vibrations. Our vibrations create our lives. Today, here and now, and forever. Because today becomes the future. And so they're all connected there. The beauty of it is we can go back and find what was that thought that started to create the thing that we don't want that's now in our lives. That's called contrast. When we see contrast and we get to the place and we say, I don't want that, we now know what we can do through the weeks that we've gotten to this point, begin to change it, because the thought changes the feeling changes the vibration changes your life. The universal laws that we're looking at are eternal, they are universal, they're absolute, they're always the same. And that gives us the confidence to be able to go forward and make some changes that we may not have thought we could have made in the past. So let's look at what we're going to look at. Number 6 this week is the law of detachment. This shows up, we have lots of spiritual cliches. And you've all heard these, you've seen them on PowerPoints. It's let go and let God, right? Well, I was going to ministerial school in Detroit. And I had an instructor who was very proud that she had been in Unity for 40 years. And she said, made a statement that you cannot be a unity minister, a successful one, unless you know how to let go and let God. Well, I'm like, cool, I got the secret. So my question to her was, how do you do that? I don't. Well, you just meditate. How? Well, she got a little more angry. And said, well, just go and pray. How do I pray to let go and let God? She was clueless. We can all be clueless with these cliches. You want to question yourself. Don't just say them, don't just hear them. How? How do I do that? And one of the things we're going to be looking at today is the how to begin to do that. And the way I see it anyway. And again, as I've always said, this works for me. Try it out. See where it fits for you. And if it doesn't at this point in time or ever, you just let it be. But the law of detachment shows up in the Hindu literature thousands of years ago. Like two golden birds perched on the self-same tree. Intimate friends, the ego and the self-capped, dwell in the same body, yours and mine. The former eats the sweet and the sour fruit of the tree of life, while the latter looks on in detachment. So this is the teaching that we've been talking about all along, is that we basically have two selves, right? We have the ego or the human self, we have the divine perfect self, the higher self, true self. I call it my inner being, all capped, because that makes it easier when I call it inner me. When I have a conversation, which I do all the time, and especially in the morning, first thing, it's like, well, inner me, what's up for today? I have incredible conversations. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And you've got to have the conversation with that part of you, that divine piece of you, that can help guide you differently than if I just use my mind. And that's what he was talking about here thousands of years ago. These two birds live in the very same body. Right? There's another saying of the Taoists. He was talking to the guru as a young child, and he said, and he was teaching, he said, well, there's two wolves within you. And he's like, well, master, which wolf wins? Which one? He said, the one you feed. So you and I get to choose. We make a choice which one we're going to feed. Which one are we going to give our attention or our focus to, because we already know vibrationally and energetically wise, what we give our attention to and our focus grows, does it not? It's the very same thing here, is learning to detach from the human ego versus being engaged, entangled in all the drama. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along. In order to acquire anything in the physical universe, we have to relinquish our attachment to having it. Now, this is counterintuitive to everything I was taught. I don't know about you, but I was domesticated. You had to go out there and go for it. Compete. Well, when you think about that whole notion, that's coming from a belief in lack, is it not? It means there's not enough for everyone. You got to better go take yours before they get it. That is not true. This is a universe of abundance, lavish abundance. But we have been taught that there's only a little bit, or you're only worthy enough for a little bit, or only good enough for this little bit. But those are ego limitations that you and I have bought into the rules. And you know what rules are, right? They're BS rules. Someone made them up. And you took them in and made them a belief. And how do we get a belief? By repeating the thought over and over again with emotion. That's how we build rules, limits, lacks. And it's not true. And as we begin to detach from that untruth and open up to the lavish abundance that is true, it all begins to change. But we have to detach from the old belief system. That's what the law of detachment is about. Now, this doesn't mean we give up intention and desire, which we just talked about last week. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's not but, it's an and. We have our intention, we put it to desire, send that rockets of desire up with intent. They're powerful. But as we look through the process now to detach, I'm letting go of what? The how to get there. That's where we as egos and humans want to control the minutia. We want to control the details. We want to control the timing. Wait a minute, let me look at that little seedling I put in the ground. Wow, it only grew 1 centimeter this week. It's dead now because we don't trust the process. And detachment is about moving to a place of complete and total trust that the universe is working to your greatest good. And most of us haven't really integrated that as a belief. We've been taught life is a struggle. You gotta butt your head up against everything. No, it's a flow. It's a fully abundant flow. We give up our attachment of the outcome, and we move from neediness. You know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. You and I have run into people who are needy. And it's like when you're around that energy, you just want to run. It's like, ooh, no. Right? That's where neediness comes from, is grabbing a hold and holding on like there's nothing else for you. It doesn't matter whether it's money, it doesn't matter whether it's state of mind, it doesn't matter whether it's a relationship. If you are holding on to something that doesn't make you feel good, you're going to stay not feeling good in that vibration. It cannot, universe cannot bring you anything else unless you begin to change your intention and desire and detach from what you're hanging on to with that chokehold. This is all I'm ever going to get. This is as good as it's ever going to get from me. No, it's not. That's a lie. It's an absolute lie. Anything you desire can be acquired through detachment. Whoa, that's a big statement, is it not? Anything. I want to read it again so you don't miss it. Anything that you desire can be acquired through detachment. Why? Because the process of detachment is based on the unquestioning belief in the power of the divine, of source energy, your inner self, your higher self, your soul, whatever word works for you. But if you believe in your DNA that there is nothing but the best coming for you from the universe, and you detach from all limits and all restriction, you will get whatever it is. But it's always choice that you and I have. Do we hold on and clench? Well, this is as good as it can get for me. Or begin to unclench and step into what? Uncertainty. Because only in uncertainty can something change. Where does certainty come from? Let's look a little further. Attachment is based on fear and insecurity. And the basis of insecurity is not knowing who and what you are. You don't know your power yet. You don't know how powerful this source energy is that flows through you. You're still down here, only believing in this little bit is enough for me. Attachment is based on putting your faith in symbols or the illusion of, and I'm going to use money here, such as money. Detachment is synonymous with the wealth consciousness because we have the ability to create from infinite possibilities. So as we move from attachment to detachment, we free ourselves from all that we're holding on to, which has us living at the place where we are today, and the new vibration opens up to what? Infinite possibilities. We call it the law of pure potential, right? Unlimited possibility. But we cannot get there till we detach from what we're living and what is normal, quote normal, status quo, what feels safe. We have to step into uncertainty. to be able to take that next step. Attachment to money will always create insecurity no matter how much money you have in the bank. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you have $1,000 or $1 billion. It's just more zeros. But the money in the bank is not your security. Right? The money in the bank does not make you happy. Not having money in the bank doesn't make you happy either. Because happy and money do not go together. Happy is your choice and mine. And I can be happy for absolutely no reason outside of me. I can be joyful for absolutely no reason. I can be peaceful for absolutely no reason in the circumstances in the external. And as we begin to detach from all those external symbols, and that's all they are, illusions, it's not the real deal. And as we get connected and begin to breathe and get to that place of that source energy that flows within you and I, or God, or the divine, or spirit, whatever word works for you, that's where it all lies. And as we detach from the symbols and the illusions and let go, and in the flow, we move into uncertainty and new can begin to show up. The search for security in the external things is an illusion. Attachment, now this is really key to understanding this. Attachment can only be to the known, what you know. And what you know, the known, is only coming from your past. Right? And you become now a prisoner of your own past conditioning. You're limited. You're in a box. You put yourself there because you believe that's all you're worth or all you're good enough for. But as you begin to detach from those beliefs, you open up to the uncertainty, and that prison door flings open. And now, what do you have? The quantum field of pure potential is available to you to begin to put in place new desires, to begin to vibrate at a new level that brings you what does feel good or what will make you happy. Uncertainty is stepping into the unknown in every moment of your existence. This takes courage. This is willing to detach from what feels normal, what status quo has been. Because if you don't, you will continue to get everything you're getting. Because you're vibrating at what you're getting, right? And if you want to move to something else, you've got to let that go. That's moving into the uncertainty. I have no idea how this is going to work out. I am clueless. But I'm willing to take the step because I believe in the pure potential that's available to you and I. The unknown is the field of all possibilities, ever fresh, ever new, always open to your new creations. How? By setting off another rocket of desire. How? By getting in alignment and feel the emotion with that desire. And all of a sudden you begin to vibrate, having it and loving it. All the principles we just talked about begins to what? Attract it. You and I are not creators. We are attractors. We attract by using the life force flowing through us to what we wish to create. When you're experiencing uncertainty, don't give it up. Allow yourself to evolve. You cannot evolve stuck in status quo. You're stuck. The universe is growing at 12% a year. If you and I aren't growing 12% a year, we are falling further behind. So how do we free ourselves? We let go, we detach, and we walk into the uncertainty of this moment saying, I believe it's all possible. And that is allowing ourselves to begin to evolve. We keep our desires and our intentions, and once we set those, remember last week we talked about how to do that. When you're in the gap, set your intention and desire in the gap. And now this piece is, once set, we release any need to control anything else. The how is not our job. Our job is to hold the intention and the desire and begin to vibrate, knowing that we already have it and love it. And the rest of it will take care of itself. And you're going to see signs along the way. You're moving closer and closer to that point. Lose the need to think you are in control, because it's an illusion. You are not. Right? Which bird is that coming from? And we all have that bird. We all have that ego that says, oh, we got this. We got this nailed. We're in control. No. Quantum physicist says, at best, you know 4%. The conversation I have with my ego is, you want to be in control, 4%, go at it. I won't master the 96%. And I think that's how it breaks down between the two birds, don't you? I want to be where it's uncertain. I want to be where I'm free to evolve into something that's much greater than today. I want to be able to grow more than 12%. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And you and I can, because we understand now the universal laws and the principles to put that in place. So follow these steps. Number one, today, commit yourself. Commit myself to detachment. I will allow myself and those around me the freedom to be as they are. I will participate in everything with detached involvement, unentangled in the drama. It's their stuff. What bird are they coming from when they're in drama? I'm not playing that game. I'm going to detach from it. Hold my personal power within me and let the entanglement of the ego play its game. Because I can tell you right now, that's an upstream battle. It's an upstream game, and there ain't nothing in the upstream that I want. And there's nothing in the upstream for you. And the minute we detach from that entanglement, the canoe turns by itself, the paddles get thrown away, and we begin to float downstream. Downstream. And versus paddling like crazy trying to go against the tide. Number two, today I will factor in uncertainty as an essential ingredient of my experience. Embrace it. It's how you evolve. It's how you grow. Embrace the uncertainty. In accepting uncertainty, solutions will flow out of the confusion, disarray, and chaos. All of a sudden it's like, oh wow, where did that come from? It came from you detaching from knowing what had to happen or trying to maintain control. And as you go downstream in the flow, it begins to show up. We're watching that happen here at Unity Harrisburg in the last couple of weeks. Why? Because we're detaching from the old. And we're allowing ourselves to go downstream. Completely uncertain. We have no idea where it's going to end. It's not our job. Our job is to stay downstream. And enjoy the ride. Because I believe this life was created for us to enjoy the ride. And somehow we're losing that in some ways. We're not going to do that. Step into the field of all possibilities and anticipate the excitement that can occur when we remain open to an infinity of choices. Here is the fun. Here is the adventure. Here is the mystery of life. It's not in redoing and rehashing what you've been doing for all those years. That's boring. Where's boredom show up on our emotional grid? It is not up at 7, I can tell you that right now. It's not a contentment. Think back when you've been bored. You can't say, oh, I was really bored and I'm content. Different energies. You feel it, I feel it. And the people around you feel it. All right, let's move into principle. We did principle of all these others, and now we're at principle of surrender. This is the one the ego doesn't like at all. Doesn't even like the word surrender. Surrender is a way to turn back into your inner self. Turn back into the divine within. Turn back into, as I said, I call it my inner me. Your inner self, your higher self. It demonstrates our faith that the universe loves us and has our back at all times. When we're, the opposite of surrender, obviously, is control, right? So we know which bird thinks it's going to control everything and which bird surrenders. And we have both birds. All of us do. And they vie for our attention. They vie for our focus. Focus and attention gives it energy. We give our personal power to whichever one of these we choose. When resistance shows up, we have a choice. And resistance shows up for all of us every week. Resistance comes up against us, right? Slows down the flow. Wants to take our attention off into something else. We have a choice to focus on that, talk about it, tweet about it, put it on Facebook, tell all our friends, chew on it like a bone. Nobody feels good when they do that, do they? Or we can surrender it and know that source energy or God or what word works for you has it all handled. Get back in downstream flow. Or as the Tao Te Ching said, get back in the Tao. So all the great teachers have all taught this, that you let go, relinquish, surrender, move back to what's true for you. And that's what this principle is all about. There is always a gap between where you are today and where you want to be. You know what I'm talking about, that gap? And that gap stops more people because it takes too long, or it seems too overwhelming, or all these other things. But what happens is when we set off a rocket of desire and begin to believe in it, and the bigger our asking is, the wider the gap. And it's in this gap that we need to surrender to the process. Because if we don't and try to maintain control in there, we're either going to end up with something less than what our desire is, because we're working with 4% of the equation, or if we surrender and detach, we get to open up to the 96 or the 100% that will take us to where we want to be the best way. But it requires that trust. It requires that ability to let go and say, I don't have a clue. I am uncertain where this is going, but I'm going to follow what unfolds. And slowly but surely it will begin to unfold and close the gap. Another way to close the gap is, and you've heard this now from me for 6 weeks, we close the gap with these two questions. Is this what I want? And does it make me feel good? And that's our two questions that we keep asking over and over again, because it will take us back to alignment with the flow. And once we're in alignment with the flow, we will get to where our desire is. That rocket of desire is waiting for you and I in the future. I don't know if I'll be able to do this on Sunday, but on Tuesday, I'm going to, at one of these Tuesdays, we're going to talk about how the rocket of desire gets ahead of you. It's downstream. It is never upstream. And when we've been paddling against trying to get there and never get there because we're going in the wrong direction, number one. And number two, we are not in the flow. We are not letting go. We are not surrendering to this intelligence. This is the intelligence created the cosmos. Why wouldn't we get in alignment and use it? It makes no sense. These questions lead us to downstream thinking and feeling, and once we're in the flow of source energy, it is guaranteed you can have, do, or be anything you choose that you believe you can. There is nothing out there in the universe that you cannot do that if you follow these principles and these universal laws. Nothing new can come to you and in our lives unless we open up energetically and begin to vibrate at the new. This is the piece that's missing in so many people that I coach. That I want to manifest this, and here's where I am, and here's the gap. To close the gap, you've got to be vibrating at your new desire. Remember what Jesus said, ask and believe that you already have it. Believing you already have it means you're vibrating, your frequency is already done. That's the having and the loving that we talked about these last couple of weeks. Surrender your old thinking, your upstream paddling. Let it go. And watch what happens. You don't have to do anything more than that because the canoe goes like this and starts downstream. When we know that our desires are from source or the divine within, we can surrender all of our doubts and fears even when they're not here yet. This is part of the surrender piece. Knowing that you got my back. Knowing that I will succeed in this process as I surrender to the intelligence that created the cosmos. Knows the best way to get there. May not even be in my mind. I've had so many things lately happen that I had no thought about it. It just started to unfold. That's downstream living. That's relinquishing control. It's also living faith. Remember what Jesus said, faith is a trust in the unseen. This is where faith comes in. This is where you have to let go and surrender to the process, even when you can't yet see it's coming. It's part of that gestation period. When you put the seed in the ground, it takes time, right? When the seed of human starts, it's 9 months, typically. That's the gestation period. It's true of any manifestation. Once we get in the thought, make the thought form, energetically begin to hold the vibration, it will take whatever it takes for it to show up, but it will. Interaction with others causes most of our stress, does it not? Yeah, it's when we rub up against those other human beings. Oh boy. How do we surrender that? Once we have that, we become masters over our emotions. Because this is the playground where we get challenged, do we not? And where do we get most challenged? By those closest to us. Right? Because their ego bird knows how to trigger your ego bird. Does it not? And the longer you two been together, the better you get at it. And when that ego bird triggers this ego bird, that ego bird knows how to trump that ego bird. That's called, that is not downstream. That's as upstream as it can get. And I can tell you on question number 2, 1 and 2, is this what I want? No. Does it feel good? No. So what do we do about this? How do we surrender in relationships? Now, I'm going to share something today quickly that's called the drama triangle. Some of you may have seen this and may know it, but I find this so helpful. Because in any relationship, you're going to find you're somewhere in one of these 3 in the triangle. By the way, this is where triangulation comes from. So the drama triangle is this. You have a persecutor. And I got news for you. You don't want to just point fingers at everybody you say this is persecuted, because you've been one too. We've played all 3 of these over and over again. But the persecutor's the bully, right? Which bullies are always cowards anyway. But they play out of their woundedness. They play out of not feeling good enough. They're the ones that are going to try to get in your face. And if they're not that, they're the ones that are going to shoot what I call email grenades over the wall and hide. They're cowards. They always are. But they play out of this woundedness, and when they can't have a conversation authentically and open and honest, they'll take to the other passive-aggressive, dysfunctional ways. You've had these, you've been in. We all have. But it's part of the drama triangle. We need to understand this. But here's one thing you'll learn about a persecutor. Someone who's been persecuted becomes a persecutor. Someone who is abused becomes an abuser. Someone who is bullied becomes a bully. It happens all the time. We see it everywhere. Because they're coming out of the woundedness of being an abuser, of being abused, they become an abuser. So on the other side of the triangle, some of you may recognize the rescuer. I hear it all the time when I'm coaching someone, they'll say, well, you know, I was the peacemaker in the family. I'm like, oh, no. It's a thing, isn't it? My job is to make sure everything works in the family, or at work, or in my intimate relationships, or whatever. My job is to make sure everybody else is happy. Guess what? It doesn't work. You cannot make anyone else happy, and they can't make you happy. They can't. So this rescuer is just as frustrated as the persecutor in a different way. Sometimes the rescuers take on the air of holier than thou kind of thing. You know, I am the peacemaker. Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. But he didn't say be a rescuer in the drama triangle. Right? There's a difference here. And then last we have victim. And these three play out almost all human relationships. Why is it normal, quote? Because we've been domesticated in this. Our parents played this out. We saw teachers and principals play it out. We saw coaches play it out. It's the way we interact as human beings when we know nothing else. And it continues and continues in a cycle. And like I said, we've all played all three parts. But like our emotional set point, one of these three is your dominant go-to place. All three of these lose personal power, do they not? You give it up to be one of the three. And the only way you can move back into personal power is you begin to give up the dysfunction and the passive-aggressive ways of doing things and stepping back into love. And it doesn't matter where you are in the triangle, if you can begin to release this, detach from it, surrender from it, and begin to move back inside and say, what is unconditional love here? And one of the greatest things you can do is not entangle with the other two, wherever your set point is. Pull your energy back. Don't get engaged with the abuser. Don't get engaged with the persecutor. They're going to try to engage you in ways, emails or texts or whatever. Don't engage. You say, well, it's this new technology. What do I do about it? I said, guess what? I can tell you what I do with it. Those who want to be persecutors or bullies with me, guess where they go? Spam. I don't even see it. You have the power to do that. Do not take on stuff that engages you in their stuff. It's their stuff. And as you engage it, let their stuff be their stuff. Guess where karma comes? Not here. It comes there. Tenfold. Multiplies. Right? The boomerang universe. Hold your personal power back. Disengage. Surrender to it. And stay in a place of love. And say, hey, that's so-and-so being so-and-so. Let them do their thing. If you're a rescuer, you do the same thing. You get to know that none of this is any of my business. I pull my power back. I can send love and blessings to them. But I do not engage in trying to help them be better. It's not your job. Because you can't. You can't make them happy. Ever. You set upon an impossible task that will never make you happy. You can only make you happy. And one of the ways you make you happy is you pull your personal power back, disengage from all of that. Because what happens to most rescuers, then they are motivated and controlled by, oh, am I pleasing enough people? And if they don't give me a smile, or I don't get a like or a love on my Facebook, then there's something wrong with me. No, that's their stuff. And as you begin to pull back and own your own power and stay connected with the divine, you will begin to lose the need to try to rescue everyone else, which is an impossibility. And the victim's going to move from a place of no longer being in the blame game, blaming everyone else. Because you all have been rescuers with victims who turn on you, don't you? Yeah. It's a game you can't win. And the victims are always going to blame the other two until they learn to take their personal power back and begin to come from a place of unconditional love. So you know what? That person's their person, been doing it a long time, probably going to keep doing it. That person, they tried to help me, it didn't work. I got to make myself happy. That's why you and I were given free will choice. It's how we were created, we were designed. And when we give it up to one of the others, there is no happiness in that for anyone on the triangle. As you look through this next week, you're going to begin to see names are going to show up on the triangle. Recognize who they are, withdraw your energy, do not engage in the drama, and the drama goes away. Use spam if you like, it works great for me. I'm not going to engage in it. Surrender to the energy of love. We learned last week or 2 weeks ago, it's the force that creates what? All new things. So as you begin to pull back your energy from the triangle, you now have energy to move forward to create, attract the life that you want, and let the disengagements go. The vibration of loving makes us irresistibly attractive and effortlessly magnetizes us to all things necessary to fulfill our desires. I don't know about you, but that's an empowering place to be. And as you stand in that, you will begin to see the desires that you set forth begin to manifest. And you will not be stuck in the drama of the triangle, engaged in all of that pulls you down the emotional grid. All that dysfunction, passive-aggressive stuff in the triangle, it's so low on the emotional grid that it has to pull you down. And as you disentangle and let go, you start, remember the cork? We start to come back up to the surface. And at least get above number 7, contentment, and on up to bliss. Our desires which come from our source, our inner self, guide us to become who we are. Our desires always lie downstream. No desire you have for you is back up upstream, ever. So as you begin to get more attuned to whether I'm upstream or downstream, our emotions always guide us. Does it feel good? We're in alignment with the desire or source. Does it not feel good? We're out of alignment. And that's our guide all day long. Back and forth, staying downstream. When in alignment, we feel good. Out of alignment, not good. It happens all day long. And as you stay true to feeling good and being in alignment, you're going to see these things of your desires begin to matter. As I said all the time, I like to kiss. Keep it simple and spiritual and straight. Stay downstream. Ready? Let's go to meditation. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a couple more. I was ready to get to meditation. Detachment is not that you should own nothing, but that nothing should own you. You can have it all. Just don't have it all own you. All right? So as we introduced last week, we're going to do some decreeing again today before we go into meditation.